This week's guest is bringing an interesting perspective to the podcast. I'm excited to have podcast listener Tyesha Hemmans on the show to share her experience walking through the college application process with her own high school students from the perspective of a high school counselor. She learned a lot about herself in the process and says it gave her an entirely new perspective as she navigated this territory with her own two sons. You got into this profession to make a difference in your students' lives, but you're spread thin by all of the things that keep getting added to your to-do list. I can't create more hours in the day, but I can invite you into my Counselor Click where you'll finally catch your breath. Come with me as we unpack creative ideas and effective strategies that'll help you be the counselor who leaves a lifelong impact on your students. I'm Lauren Tingle, your high school counseling hype girl, here to help you energize your school counseling program and remind you of how much you love your job. Now, let me introduce you to our guest. Tyesha Hemmans is a highly experienced college application consultant with over 20 years of dedicated service who has had the privilege of working in diverse educational settings, including public, private, and charter schools. She's passionate about supporting students and families with the information necessary to reach their higher education goals. She believes that knowledge is power, and she serves as a dedicated resource agent providing families with crucial information to make college acceptance a reality. Tyesha is a proud wife, mother of 2 college-age sons, Pinterest enthusiast, counselor, educator, and advocate for mental wellness. Let's go ahead and welcome Tyesha so we can talk all about the intersection of college counseling and parenting with her. Hey, Tyesha, thank you so much for being on High School Counseling Conversations. I'm so glad you approached me with a really fun topic that I think will be really beneficial to our listeners. But give us some more context before we dive in. Tell us where you are in the education space now and give us a rundown of your kids and their ages.
So thank you so much, Lauren, for hosting this topic. Back when my son, and I'll tell you about him in a moment, but back when he was in high school, him and I wanted to do something called the Adventures of the College Counselor. And we wanted to kind of just share our experience of the process. I am 20 years a high school counselor. I've had the pleasure of working in a public school, a charter school, and then most recently a private school. And the experiences that I gained from all 3 settings were just amazing, very different, but amazing. And it really helped me get ready for my kids going to college. So I have a now 22-year-old. He did a fast track and finished his master's in 5 years.
Wow.
He's now working in accounting. And then I have a younger son who is 19, and he came home this summer calling himself a student scientist. He's a chemistry major at a university nearby. And it's just wild that, one, I have kids this old, but 2, the experiences that I shared with them in the process of preparing for them to go to college. It was quite wild. And I'm sure some of your listeners might have the same experience, or they might be working themselves up to it, depending on, how old their kids are.
Yeah. Or if they are like childless altogether, it'll give them some perspective of the parent perspective. So in this episode, I want to hear about what it was like for you to be a high school counselor and walk through the college application process with your sons. And it sounds like, at least your first son was very open to entertaining this idea of like working through it with you. Like my first thought was, what were your sons thinking when they were like, oh, my mom is going to help me through this? Or were they thinking, I need somebody else who's not my mom? What was like their perspective going into it?
Well, I'll tell you first and foremost, I was super anxious about it because I didn't want them to be mad at me. Like 17-year-olds, they have, a short fuse sometimes, right?
Or you don't know what you're going to get depending on the day.
Exactly. But I was super conscious of not pushing too much and really being their mom through the process. So I will tell you for my eldest, for sure, for the college essays, I love the college essay guy, Ethan. I know him. So I definitely sought out his help. I signed up my son for, his essay sessions, and that was a tremendous help. That was really, I think, the hardest part of the process, for me at least. the selecting of the colleges, I kind of just sat back and let my kids really explore. I did all the things like, even though I'm going to say secretly, I wanted them to stay in state because I'm such a mama bear.
Right. You want to keep them close to home.
Exactly. But I did the thing where I let them fly out and do college trips and college tours with different organizations just to kind of see if this was something that they wanted to do. And both came back saying, no, I want to kind of stay in California. So I was like,
Like
score.
score.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But I will say I was super conscious about the boundaries between being their mom and having knowledge of this process.
How did you like navigate that? Did you feel like sometimes you were more mom and sometimes you were more college counselor, or you just tried to like find the balance and walk the line in between both of those?
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you what I did first at my high school that I worked. I did presentations, right? I actually had like a college knowledge class once a week for my seniors. So I started off by doing my presentations at home in front of my kids.
What did they think about that?
They thought I was crazy. They thought it was overkill. They were like, I already know, what I want to do. So, both of my boys, they're super studious. And so they did their own research, right?
That's a blessing too. I'm sure not everybody could say that.
Right. But I think what the saving grace was when they saw me presenting, because I had my real presentations that I presented to my kids at school. They saw it and they were like, okay, she might know a little bit about what she's talking about. And so from there, that kind of sparked the conversations of, okay, this is what I'm thinking. This is where I want to go. This is what I want to do. So in that aspect, I felt like I put my college counselor hat on.
They probably already have your trust. You have their trust
Yeah,
as mom, but they never really seen you in that work mode before. And then they said, oh, wait, she actually does know about this stuff. Like they weren't expecting that.
exactly. I think I got some cool points. And then my eldest son, his high school counselor happened to be very new to college counseling. And there were some things, she was kind of still figuring out. So he started asking me to talk to his friends and his friends' parents, or he's like, Mom, my counselor, she's not mentioning this. And so can you talk to my friends? Because I don't want them to be left behind and blah, blah, blah. So I kind of became, at least the person they came to for questions.
Did that feel awkward to navigate? Like, because you know this person at the school but
Yeah,
you also like want to be kind because you're like, I was new too at one point. Like, I get it. Like, I've
exactly.
been where you are, but I want my kid and his friends to get the information they need. How did you like navigate that?
You know what? Yes, I was. So this counselor came from elementary. I can't fathom going from elementary to high
It'd be
school.
so overwhelming for
Yes,
that process in particular.
exactly. So I would collaborate with her. I would go to the meetings. Sometimes I would jump in with answers.
Because you know what it's like to be presenting and no one says anything to you. You ask for the
Exactly.
audience to participate and no one raises their hand. You're like, okay, I see you. I'm going to help.
Oh my gosh, I remember one particular time there was a parent meeting, and you know how, I don't know if in your state you have like trio upward bound.
Hmm.
So the upward bound person was supposed to help the counselor out in this presentation, but she didn't show up.
Oh no.
I know. So I was kind of jumping in, helping. And I thought it was fantastic. I feel like that's where I shine. So it wasn't a problem. I think I gained a lifelong friend with the counselor
Oh, that's
because
great.
we were, I felt like in the trenches answering all these questions. And so that was pretty cool. And again, more cool points from my kids. So that experience was good. But I think another takeaway, I guess I should say, when I put my mommy hat on in this process, is scholarships.
Mm-hmm. Because you're like, this is important to our family.
So I came up with this thing called Scholarship Sunday. And with both my boys on Sundays, like after church, we were working on scholarships. And this is where the tension came.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, where did the pressure come? Because I'm sure it
Yeah.
wasn't always rainbows and butterflies.
No, no, the scholarship process was horrendous, to be honest. There were like days after where they didn't talk to me. They were so upset that they had to sit there. It was a real thing in my house, 2 hours on Sundays, because, I'm a two-family house income. We weren't going to get any sort of aid. We both college grads, etc. So it's like, okay, you applied to this, school that costs 90,000 a year and we're not going to get any aid. What are we going to do? Like,
Right. Do you think the tension came from they just didn't want to put in that work, or they didn't see the connection between how much it costs and like the reality of getting there? Because I feel like I was very unaware of that in high school. I just thought if I want to go there, we'll figure it out, which is
right,
not possible. Like
right.
there's some reality that needs to set in when you're in high school and you can't see outside of yourself.
Exactly. I think it was a little bit of both, but I think it was more didn't want to put in the work.
Mm-hmm. Like it's my weekend. I don't want to do more schoolwork on the weekend.
But listen, at the end of the process, it was like maybe 45 essays or something crazy like that we spawned from the five, that we
Mm-hmm.
started with. We just had to do it. We just had to do it. It's funny, we hooked up the computer to show on the television screen
Mm-hmm.
because, television screen is what, like 60 inches or something like that. So we were like editing essays together. We were, doing that whole thing, which gave me a new, I don't know, appreciation. Or I have a lot of students who do this on their own. They
Mm-hmm.
don't have, parents who have been through this, experience this, even language barriers. It made me want to help my students a lot more,
Yeah.
after working with my own kids, because it was a lot of work.
And you're like, these kids in my house have the support. They have someone walking them through and they don't want to do it. Like the kid who
Oh my
doesn't have
goodness.
support, who might not be motivated. I mean, can you imagine like even just the mental barriers to get through or the imposter syndrome? Like, well, I don't even have anyone to show me. So I'm just not going to do it. Like they just don't even think that it's possible, let alone finding the motivation to go through it.
Absolutely. Again, I had a new appreciation for those kids because it was torturous, to get my kids up to say like, look, we're first hour, we're going to search scholarships. Which ones do you even apply for? Second
Mm-hmm.
hour, we're going for it. Like, the college tracker. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
you have one of those spreadsheets where you
Mm-hmm.
kind of monitor everything. Oh, they hated that. They said that was a girl thing. Girls do
Like too
that.
organized. Like they're just like, no, I don't, they probably didn't want to care that much. They didn't want to look like they cared that much.
Exactly. But you know what? When we saw the fruits of our labor coming in, my boys both won, local scholarships. My eldest, he went to a private school, so he got merit scholarships. And so that was fantastic. And when they started to see that come in, it was like, okay, all
Yeah.
right,
Did that
this is
motivate them a little
working.
more to like keep going? Like, was that kind of trickling in as they were applying? And so then they could see that and get excited?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And then going to those little scholarship receptions and,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? They call you out and,
And they
do a,
felt proud of their work.
yes, they were so excited. My youngest, though, he's at a local public school, one of the bigger public schools here, and there wasn't an opportunity for merit. And so he felt a little bit like pressure to somehow find some extra money somewhere.
Because then
So
it got competitive.
it got competitive. Yes, absolutely. And I think but he didn't tell me about the competitiveness, or I didn't see it at first. But then little by little, after he started earning scholarships, he would tell me, well, I need to get two more because my brother got, this amount and I need to make sure. So it's definitely interesting. And they're 3 years apart.
Okay.
So we had a little bit of time in between to kind of mentally rest before the next one, save some more money.
Did the younger one see the whole process that his older brother was going through and look at it with dread? Or do you think he learned from what his older brother was doing? It was like, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing soon.
Yes, I think he learned from it. But again, my anxiety kicked in a little bit because I didn't want my youngest to feel like he had to go down the same path.
Mm-hmm.
I'm super conscious. I don't know if you have multiple children, but it's like I want them to be their own person and experience, their own thing. But at the same time, in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, I hope experience is a little bit better or
Right.
definitely not worse than the
Yeah.
first one. And then honestly, I did everything all over because even though my youngest, he was probably like in seventh or eighth grade when we were going on college tours, I wanted him to have his own college tour.
Yeah.
So, went on the same, trips, and they applied to some of the same schools, but one was a math brain and he wanted that of finance and accounting. He's a scientist now. So we were looking for schools with, science majors and all that kind of stuff. So it was a different experience.
Well, and being in seventh grade, he got that early exposure, but he might not have been thinking anything.
Yeah,
Like he didn't have any particular questions. He was like along for the ride at that point. So that's cool that you
exactly.
gave them each their own experience with that and you got to experience that with them. Like you said, they're different people. They have different pathways and different interests. So I have younger kids and I am learning, you have to discipline them differently. And that's
Oh,
just the
yes.
start of that. They're going to have different personalities. They're going to respond differently in school and be motivated by different things. So it proves that all the way up until the end.
Absolutely, for sure. And I think what was really cool is seeing them root for one another.
Oh, that is sweet. You're like, as a parent, that's what you want is you want your kids to be friends with each other. And yeah, even if there's like a little competitive edge that ultimately they'd be cheering for each other and they'd be proud of each other.
Yes, I think that was the most rewarding part of it is to really see them interact and to hear them, excited for one another through the process.
If you are the parent of a high school student, I want you to listen up to this special podcast promotion. I'm offering an exclusive 25% off coupon to my podcast listeners off of my College Prep 101 Clueless to Confident course. Inside this digital course, parents and students will have everything they need to go from beginning to end of the college application process while staying on track, organized, and knowledgeable. Use the practical framework found inside College Prep 101 to empower your student to conquer the college application process. Inside, you'll find videos and workbooks to guide your student through searching, testing, applying, and getting financial aid. Use the discount code COLLEGE25 to save 25% on this resource. That's about $175 in savings to have peace of mind throughout the entire college application process. You'll be relieved to have someone you trust, me, other than yourself, the adult, helping your student through the process. Visit counselorclick.com/collegeprep to read more about what's inside the course. And don't forget to use the discount code COLLEGE25 to save $175 when you check out.
The application fees are quite a bit, right? So I had this thing, okay, I'm going to give you $500. Let's make some really great choices.
Yeah. Do you feel like they did that well? Like they kind of budgeted it out or?
I did. Yeah. So each one they were accepted to all but one school that
Wow.
they applied to. Yeah. And so it really was a sense of, okay, I got to make this money work for me. And also I can't just, apply to apply. That's again where my college counselor hat came on.
Well, and that gives them, if you're doing just applications just to do applications, that might just wear you down too. Like another
Absolutely.
one, even though it was somewhere you didn't really care about, or maybe you didn't do really a
Hmm.
lot of research about. And like you said, if money is coming into play and it's going to cost something, if your student is not thinking much about that, it's just going to hurt you as the parent who's like giving them the money for it. So I think that's a really
Exactly.
smart tip to give them almost a budget because
Yes.
obviously that's going to benefit in other aspects of their life as well. Like budgeting is something that you want them to know and to be independent with when they leave your house too.
Absolutely. I definitely, that was college counselor talking, not mom, because, I have a lot of parents who just don't even know. And
Hmm.
then I have a lot of kids who apply to 15, 20 schools and they're walking around like zombies in their senior year. I'm like,
And they weren't even interested in those ones. They were just doing it to do it.
just doing it to get the check mark or to say, oh,
Hmm.
I got accepted to, 15 schools, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So I think I definitely kicked in as college counselor, giving that advice. We're not going to do that, man. That's not going to happen here. We're going to apply where we would really want to go. You would go to
Mm-hmm.
all of these schools if you only got accepted to one, and we're going to make it work. So
That's
at
great.
the end, we were happy with the choices.
Were there any certain pressures that you felt because this is what you do for work? Like you wanted them to achieve certain things or get into certain schools or get all the scholarships because you had access to the list, of you got emails of what scholarships were coming out, that kind of stuff. Did you feel the
Right.
personal pressure of that?
I did. I did, especially the first go with my eldest son. It was, I felt like some sort of eyes were on me, whether it was, me fantasizing about all these people or what they're going to say if my kid doesn't get into a certain school.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think any of my family or friends really felt that way, but I felt that they would.
Right.
And same with my kids. Like, I didn't have an expectation that they go to a university. They could have very well gone to a community college if they wanted. I was, so open with the process, but I did feel pressure, if I'm being honest. And I think that pressure kind of led to me reaching out for help from other people that I knew. Right. So, like, one of my good friends was also editing the essay. Again, I reached out to College Essay Guy. I signed them up for college tours at different places. And so I was like, well, if it's a community effort,
Yeah.
the pressure won't come back directly to me, right?
Right. You're like, if they fail, it wasn't just my fault. I involved other people in this as well.
Exactly, exactly. But we were blessed. It all happened the way that it should have.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, like, I didn't tell my kids, what my first choice for them was, even though, as college counselors, we know this is a certain kind of fit. And then I
Mm-hmm.
really know my kids. And I'm like, I think you would do well there. I didn't say it out loud until they picked the school. So
Would that be advice that you would also give to parents in the process too, or other high school counselors who have kids of like, keep your opinions almost to yourself and navigate where you need to, but let them discover it on their own?
absolutely. Because at the end of the day, you don't want them to have any regrets. I don't want my students to have regrets, right? So, of course, I don't want my kids to have regrets. So, I didn't want to, put the pressure, I think this is the one, this is the one. Because they have to live their life. They have to, both my boys lived on campus. They had to experience that, themselves. But deep down, I did have a feeling. And my eldest, he made that choice. He ended up going to the school that, again, was my first choice for him.
Okay.
And when he found out that that's also what I thought, that school is the one that I thought was best for him, he was like, yeah, I already knew that. And, I could tell on your face when we went to tour and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, dude, whatever. But, and he thrived there. He really did. It was a very great environment for him.
That's great. Did you feel like as a parent that was hard to let them steer the ship in that? Because I know like as high school counselors, like we're always saying, this should be a student driven process. Like, I'm sure you're the same. I cannot stand when a parent tries to take over because, like you said,
Yes.
the student is going to be the one living on campus, taking the classes, emailing the professors. Like, it's not going to be the parent, but sometimes that's hard for the parent to realize. Was that hard for you in the process, or were you like, no, I know that this is the goal and I'm going to try and do it? Or did it like give you empathy to those parents who overstep?
I think I came into the process probably when he was like in 11th grade, because 11th grade is my favorite grade, right? It's where you learn all about everything, the ins and the outs. So I told myself then, okay, Tyesha, you're gonna have to step back, trust the foundation that you've laid out there. The few times you've dragged them to your school to listen to you or to kind of see and everything. And just trust that, one, God has a plan for them. And I believe that. But two, that they're not going to make a poor choice. I really trusted my boys and trusted the process, right?
Mm-hmm.
And granted, I did everything that we tell or we hope our parents will do, our families will do, tours, college fairs, all of that stuff. We did all of that stuff. So I really just trusted that they would make, the best choice for them. I really did. So I kind of stepped back but I had to prep myself for a whole year.
You knew it was coming, and you know your kids' personalities by that point. So you can kind of perceive the places where you're going to get pushed back and where you're going to need to say, no, you're going to need to actually sit
Absolutely.
down on Sundays and work on this.
I knew it was going to be those scholarships and essays. I really did. And that's what every kid, I don't know. I've never had a kid who really liked writing essays, but
Right.
I didn't anticipate that they would be upset with me though, like really upset where they were like, oh, I got to sit here. I'm so mad about this. Yeah, but that happened.
It was a little more explosive than you thought it was going to be.
It really was. And my husband is so, cool tempered. He was able to kind of navigate the conversations when they were, upset
Yeah,
with
he's
me.
like a neutral person in this process because you've got the information, you're pushing them. The student is the one who actually has to do it. So then your husband could come
Yes.
in and be the neutral party. Will you now change any advice or guidance that like you are always giving to parents before your students, before your kids went through it? Now, do you think differently and do you give them anything different? Like you're like, oh, I should say this differently, or I should encourage them in this way, or let them know this is coming.
A couple of things. One, my level of empathy for them, just went up, above the roof. I was always the college counselor who says, let your kid explore, let them go. They're going to blossom.
And then you realize easier said than done. I want them to stay home with
exactly.
me.
My youngest is 45 minutes away, and I cried like a baby when he left. And he still came home at least twice a month. And I was still, I literally sat on the couch for a week, just like, it's so quiet here.
Yeah. Well, then you were an empty nester.
Yes, he's the life of the house. We're so, I don't know, we're so square. We don't do anything fun now that he's gone, and that whole thing. So when I'm talking to parents, I share my experience because I will say what I learned as a professional is different from what I experienced as a parent.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, I have all the right anecdotes to tell them and this is how you should prepare, but really the emotional part of it is a lot. It's a lot, and it's something that you just have to go through. You can't prepare for it. It's different for every child. Both my boys in college, and the feeling, the emotion behind it was different. And so I think what I do best now is share my experience.
And then they can take the bits and pieces of that and apply it to their experience as they're going through it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think I say I went from book smart to street smart, right? So
For
like
sure.
it's no other feeling, but the pride that I have, for my kids and them thriving university level is something that is a proud mama moment.
Well, I can only imagine what that feels like as a parent because I would feel that way about my students, who have overcome odds or, stepped out of their comfort zone to go to a 4-year college when they never thought that was possible. You have all those stories
Mhm.
of the students who from school who have done that. And then to have
Yeah.
it be your own kids is just another personal level of a story that is worth sharing. So I'm so glad that you've been
Yes.
here sharing it.
And I would say to my counselor friends who have children who may be about to embark on this or those considering having children, I will say, go with the feelings, the emotions that come with this, because it's something like you've been preparing for this for other people's kids your entire career.
Mm-hmm.
And when it happens to you, it's an overwhelming feeling of, again, pride, joy, emotion, nervousness, terror,
The full spectrum.
the full spectrum balled into one. But your kids have seen you do this for other kids, and they know how much you help because our job is sometimes thankless. We do this for others all the time, and we're, going to do the best for our kids and set them up for success. So just trust yourself, go through the emotions, and it will work out great.
Well, that was a perfect motivational speech to leave our listeners with of, if they do find themselves right in that intersection right now between counselor and mom or dad, and they're about to embark on this with their student, like they need to go back and listen to that section of this interview over and over and over again so they can get that confidence and just know that it will all work out. And there might be some tears along the way, but there'll be a lot of pride and joy on the other end as well, it sounds like.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to reach out for help. Maybe your kids will be mad at your counselor friends and not you.
Right. Involve all the people. Don't try and do it solo because, we know it takes a village, and even with your own family, it does.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, Tyesha, this was awesome. I love getting to hear your personal story and your family story, mixing it up with your professional background as well. I'll link your links in the show notes. Is there anything else that you wanted to add before we finish up?
No, I just want to thank you for the opportunity. I'm holding it together, but I'm really geeking out because I'm a fan.
You are so sweet.
And so I just really appreciate this opportunity and keep it up. Thank you for all that you do for school counselors. I lean on your podcast a lot. Your site, I've purchased a lot from your Teacher Pay Teacher site. And
you're so sweet.
I don't know how you find the time to do all of this, but I really appreciate it. It is much needed for us in the trenches. You give us some light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, thanks for being here. You brought a new perspective and a new light to a topic that we haven't covered on the podcast yet. So I know that listeners will take a lot of value from it. So thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Wasn't that a valuable and unique perspective from someone who has been through both experiences? I'm sure many of you have found yourself in the same boat, or you will in a few years. Don't let the stress of playing both roles of parent and counselor weigh you down. Grab College Prep 101, Clueless to Confident, and let your student steer the ship in this college process. If you're interested in learning more about the College Prep 101 digital course with lifetime access for your whole family, remember to visit counselorclick.com/collegeprep and use the code COLLEGE25 to save $175 when you check out. Thanks for listening to this week's special episode focused on the college process. I'll see you next week. Thanks for listening to today's episode of High School Counseling Conversations. All the links I talked about today can be found in the show notes and also at counselorclick.com/podcast. Be sure to hit follow wherever you listen to your podcast so that you never miss a new episode. Connect with me over on Instagram. Feel free to send me a DM at counselorclick. That's CLIQUE. I'll see you next week.